would welcome me. I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
Good day, children of God, and welcome back to this series. We are going to continue our series on church and society reforms. This is going to be the second video. The first video we talked about the Great Commission based on Matthew chapter 28 verse 18 to 20. Today we're going to talk about the church and society. We're going to define church, we're going to define society. And our base text is going to be taken from Romans chapter 12 verse 2. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewal of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. So you see what Paul is saying here is now that he has divided the whole world into two. He has separated it from the world. He said, be not conformed to this world. So that is, in order to have effective evangelism, you won't be conformed to this world. So Paul has defined, we're going to use Paul's definition here to define the two worlds, the church and the society. We're going to be using these images to represent the church, and the church is used yellow, which is bright color, and the society is a little bit dark because the church is supposed to brighten the society. So in this text now, we have defined the church as the spiritual world and the society as the secular world. Now let's take the society first. We're going to define the society and we're going to define the church. The society is the entire human race, including the church. Now we can divide the society into segments, which we will call nations, although we call it spheres, but they are actually nations, different nations. So the society has different nations. When Matthew 28 verse 19 tells us to go ye therefore make disciples of all nations, we're going to use the society to define the nations. We don't have to travel from one country to the other. So the concept of sphere was actually first used by Paul himself in 2 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 13. If you read the New King James Version, it says, we however will not boast beyond measure, but within the limits of the sphere which God appointed us. So which means God has appointed an individual, you believer, to a particular sphere. Paul said further that we are not sent to the whole world, the entire world. So everybody, you have a sphere, which means a segment of the society in which you are supposed to function, to evangelize. Now, in case of Paul defined two different segments, Gentiles and Jews. So he divided the entire society into Gentiles and Jews. It's either you are Jew or you are a Gentile. So when you are dividing the society into spheres, the entire society must be captured. I can use, for example, say I divide into man and female and woman. I can divide into age groups, below 8, above, but you have to capture the entire society. But we are going to be using a standard spheres which has started developing since 1975, and in this case we're going to be using your area of specialization, your area of expertise to divide the society into segments. So the sphere is the area of society in which you exert your influence. So now let's see. We can divide the society into 8 different spheres, and we capture the entire society. And you see the 8 spheres are, now if you go to the literature, you see 7, but there is one that is not mentioned, which is the earth, so I have to add the earth. So we actually have 8 segments, 8 spheres of the society. Now they are so labeled so that it's easy to understand. The first letter is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. The first sphere, arts, entertainment, and sports. So art, entertainment, and sport, those people who are artists, sculpture, artists, entertainment, sports, like musicians, movie stars, and so on, they belong to that group. Business and finance, those people in business, you are a businessman, or you are in the business, you belong to that group. Church and religion, actually it's just because to get the letter C, that sphere is mainly for other religions. Okay. Then distribution and media, those in the distribution and media. Then education encompass students, teachers. Family is the biggest sphere there, because everybody belongs to the family sphere. You are family, actually in family you deal with the welfare of the family, different levels. Government and law, government involves those people in government, politicians, the legislators, judges, and lawyers. Then you have earth. Earth encompasses, of course, we know doctors, nurses, and hospitals. Then we have to add science and technology to that. So we have divided the society into 8 segments. Just note, because we are going to be dealing with this in future discourse. Now let's look at the church. The church also can be divided into segments. Now, when you divide church into segments, you call it denominations. We have the Catholic, Anglican, Methodist, Reformed, Baptist, and Pentecostals. And in our analysis, when we start talking about, we're going to be considering although the church can be divided into segments, we are going to be taking the church as one, because it becomes more complicated if we have to pick each church, see how the Catholic, for example, relates to the art sphere of the society, how the Catholic relates to the business sphere, or how the Anglican. It's going to be so complicated. So we're going to take the entire church as one church. We assume that we have the same culture, and that is going to be in the next video. We're going to start talking about reforms. What is reform? We will define reforms. Thank you for watching.